Welcome to Bloomers in the Garden. I'm Len Schroeder. You know, it seems that rhododendrons are the popular topic this week. PJMs and Azaleas have dropped most of their blossoms, but rhododendrons are in their glory and they're blooming. But we had a lot of questions about them this week, not only at Bloomers, but also on the radio program. So in our first segment, we're going to tell you first how to care for these spectacular landscape plants. Then in our second segment, we continue on with rhododendrons. And we have a listener, Joseph Williams, who called the Bloomers in the Garden hotline asking about his struggling rhododendron. Hear all about it in our second segment. Next up, Kurt and his wife listened to Bloomers in the Garden on WWDB 860 in Philadelphia, and they sent us an email about their rhododendron having browned out branches, and that will be up in our third segment. Fourth up, hummingbirds are fun and whimsical visitors to our gardens, and we're going to talk all about them in our fourth segment. And do you have mushrooms growing in your lawn? With all the rain this week, you probably do. So if you're wondering if they're good or bad, we'll tell you all about it in our final segment. So stay tuned, and we'll be back in the garden right after these messages.
Bloomers in the Garden is brought to you each week by Bloomers Home and Garden Center. Bloomers is an award-winning garden center just 20 minutes from Philadelphia. Bloomers has been providing expert advice turning brown thumbs green for over 30 years. At Bloomers, we want you to ask us every question, even if you think it's silly. We share information in a friendly, non-judgmental way that is meant to teach and spread the joy of gardening. Visit Bloomers Home and Garden Center in Washington Township, Gloucester County. For directions, go to bloomers.com, and we'll see you in the garden. Fertilome's Triple Action contains 70% neem oil and 0.25% pyrethrins as a concentrate and ready to spray. It is an insecticide, fungicide, and miticide labeled to use on vegetables, fruits, nuts, herbs, spices, and ornamentals. This organic OMRI-listed product controls a wide variety of insect pests and diseases, including aphids, scale, spider mites, whiteflies, rust, leaf spot, and powdery mildew. This insecticide is an all-in-one bottle that will cure just about any problem you may run into throughout the year. Fertilome's Triple Action has been helping gardeners across the country for years. Best to apply in late evening and early morning hours. Mix 1 ounce, which is equivalent to 2 tablespoons in a gallon of water. The best part is Triple Action may be used up to the day of harvest. So the next time you are visiting your favorite garden center, ask for Fertilome's Triple Action and expect to have the best looking plants in the neighborhood.
You're listening to Bloomers in the Garden Radio. Listen anytime through your favorite podcast provider or see and hear us by subscribing to Bloomers YouTube channel. Bloomers in the Garden Radio is heard in Philadelphia and throughout the whole Delaware Valley every Saturday. First, wake up with us at 6 a.m. on WNWR The Word at 95.3 FM and 1540 AM. Tune in at 8 a.m. to Bloomers in the Garden Radio on Talk 860 WWDB. A rebroadcast of Bloomers in the Garden Radio is played each Saturday evening at 5 p.m. on The Word, 95.3 FM and 1540 AM. On Sunday at 8 a.m., we can be heard throughout the New York tri-state area on Classic Oldies, 1250 AM WMTR. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the garden. Welcome back to Bloomers in the Garden. So, rhododendrons. They are an amazing plant. And Aaron is walking around the studio at the moment. But give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. Are you a rhododendrons fan? No, you don't like rhododendrons. Either does Danielle. They're amazing. They're amazing plants. And you know why? We often see that they're that typical lavender pink rhododendron. But we had some unbelievable varieties that were like red with a white throat. And there are some really nice rhododendrons that are available. That yellow that we had this year. So it gives you a little bit more, the big blooms, but you've got to take care of them right. And one of the hardest things, and most of the questions that we got by phone and by email was about pruning. But what we're going to start with is the soil. Rhododendrons, azaleas, PJMs, they're all in that rhododendron family, and that they need to have the hardest thing, and that is well-drained, moist soil, and that doesn't stagnate. So I know, it's hard. What it means is you need to add a lot of organic matter. If you have clay, for instance, clay is the worst thing. If you try to plant without amending the soil, you're not going to have much luck. You've got to plant them so that not the plant is deep, but bury that you're going to dig that hole deep so that the water will separate and perk through the soil and not hold that water around the root of the plant, because root rot is the biggest killer of azaleas and rhododendrons. So you got to make sure that when we say dig a hole twice the size of the bottom, you're going to actually make a French drain underneath those rhododendrons and fill it with a combination of the soil they took out of the hole, but also a bumper crop that's heavily a compost with peat moss and other things in it. And the reason is because that will hold the moisture around the root system, but it's not going to hold the water around it. Now, they like to be put in light shade. Now, if you have full sun, you absolutely can do it, but you have to make sure that you're supplementing them with water. You can't just expect them to live. If they prefer a shallow root system, it's close to the surface of the soil, that you have to amend your soil. And like if you have, for instance, sand's going to dry out really quick because it's just going to perk through the soil and it's going to be gone. There's no moisture. So you have to do the same thing. You have to go and supplement it with a compost, and we recommend bumper crop, which is a mixture of composted lobster shell. There's going to be there's peat moss, there's a little bit of bark fines, everything but the kitchen sink, and that's called bumper crop by Master Nursery. And the key is making sure that you're not going to basically you're creating a new environment. If you have clay, if you have sand, if you have that perfect loam, lucky you. I don't know many people that do. But again, it's because they like to be moist, but not in standing water. So they like to be kept in a moist environment. So that means mulch as well. If you are planting them where they get a lot of winter wind, now they're very hardy plants, but they need to go into the winter fully hydrated. Now, some of our problems with our callers that they went and had issues because we had such a dry fall, and so their plants weren't totally hydrated. And we'll talk about that with the segments. Also, rhododendrons, azaleas, PJMs, most broadleaf evergreens, that they want a pH that is lower on the spectrum. So they want it a little more acidic. And in studio here, if you're watching on YouTube, we'd appreciate it if you would subscribe and give us a review. That we have Hollytone from Espoma, which is the best azalea and rhododendron fertilizer, the best fertilizer for acid-loving plants. And, you think acid-loving plants like Japanese maples, acid-loving plant. Blueberries, acid-loving plant. If you can grow a blueberry, you can grow an azalea. Then also we have something here that is Jack's, and it is an acid special, and it has a little bit of chelated iron in it. And iron is one thing that azaleas and rhododendrons crave, and it will make them green up and be beautiful. And it's a requirement. So the one that I have in my hand is a water-soluble fertilizer, and it's called Jack's Classic Acid Special Water-Soluble Plant Food with Micronutrients, and it's a 1766. If you're doing this every, say, 3 weeks or so, your azaleas and rhododendrons are going to be beautiful. And I'm taking a look on the back here and trying to see what the iron is, and there it is. There it is, and it's chelated iron, and that's because azaleas and rhododendrons crave it. So the combination of a granular espoma hollytone and the acid special from Jack's, your plants will be stunning. 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 Now, when you water, and you have to water, especially if you're going through drought periods, for the first 2 years that you're establishing your rhododendrons and azaleas, and summer watering, you got to be careful. You don't want to have it to so where it saturates the soil because that can cause root rot. Now, you don't want them to wilt, and every time you're letting your plants wilt, it's damaging their system. Okay, insects and diseases, there's a lot of them. Now, the good thing is most of them are not something that kills the plant. Now, if you grow rhododendrons and you have those big, wide leaves, every once in a while you'll see like notches out of the leaves, and you can't see an insect on it anywhere. Those notches are caused by a taxus weevil that feeds at night. It's an easy plant to take care of, and the insect is easy to take care of. But again, you've got to spray, and you want to spray with a systemic insecticide. All of the insects that plague azaleas or rhododendrons are best controlled systemically. And we've talked about it before. It's like a antibiotic where you want to make the plant poisonous to the insect, but you have to keep enough in the plant system so that it's going to have that ability to kill the insect. If you're only doing it once in a while, it's not enough. Like if you get an antibiotic because you're trying to cure something where if you take it once, it's not going to work. You have to take it enough so that it builds up in your system. Systemic insecticides are the same exact way, not one and done. Okay, so make sure that you do that. Leaf miners and borers will all be controlled by a systemic insect control. If there is just one thing, that root rot is the biggest killer of azaleas and rhododendrons, and it's because of inconsistent watering. And that what happens is that soil where it's supposed to be moist, not wet, that's not happening. And it's going through battles of dry, then wet, then dry, then wet. And what happens is it gets something called Phytophthora, and that is a disease, and it's hard to control. Once you get it, it's in the soil, and if your azalea or rhododendron is showing signs of wilting even when it's moist, there's a good chance that you got it. Bring a sample to your local garden center. Try to bring a picture and print it out, please, so that it's a larger picture, not a 2x4 screen that you're trying to see. So if you go ahead and keep them in an environment, so when they're planted, moist, okay, but not wet, by using compost, that's your first key to success. And again, if you've got clay, you want to almost build a French drain underneath of it so that that clay doesn't hold it like a basin of water, and that your compost and mixture of the soil that you take out of the hole will stay moist. And you certainly have to make sure that you go and you feed them. Again, you're going to use the hollytone from espoma, and you're going to use the Jack's acid formula. And that will help them to grow and to be amazing. And that the better that you feed them, the better the blooms will be next year. We've got a segment coming up, and that's about also rhododendrons. And we're going to get into it right after these messages. Hi, this is Len Schroeder from Bloomers in the Garden. Do you have a landscape, garden, or plant question? If so, call or text us using the Bloomers in the Garden hotline. Dial 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. Don't be shy. We want to hear from you. Call or text us and let us know what problems you're facing. Let us know how we're doing. Call or text 609-685-1880. If we use your comment on the air, we'll send you a free Bloomers t-shirt. Call or text us at 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. and we'll see you in the garden.
Dreaming of a gorgeous garden? Give your azaleas, rhododendron, blueberries, and evergreens a powerful boost with their #1 acid-loving plant food, Espoma Organic Hollytone. Hollytone is a perfect blend of natural, long-lasting ingredients that nourish plants for stronger roots, faster growth, and bountiful blooms. Plus, it's easy to use and safe for people, pets, and planet. Visit espoma.com for a retailer near you and helpful gardening tips. Espoma, a natural in the garden since 1929.
If you're like me, then you absolutely love birds. The Bird Sanctuary at Bloomer's Home and Garden Center has you covered. They're dedicated to the care and feeding of wild birds of all sorts. Want to bring more birds to your yard? Then you got to see this place. Bloomers has a huge flock of feeders, birdhouses, birdseed, and much, much more. Want to feed the birds and not the squirrels? They have this absolutely cool bronze bird feeder that will drive those sneaky squirrels nuts. They'll be moving to the next door neighbor in no time. OMG. Bloomers have these absolutely adorable birdhouses that will turn your yard into the perfect bird B&B. They carry all types of wild bird seed, suet, seed cakes, and mealworms. Bloomer stocks, Lyric, Coles, CNS, Pine Tree Farms, and much, much more that will keep those beautiful birds coming back for more. Bloomer's Home and Garden Center is located in Washington Township in Gloucester County. For more information and directions, check them out on the web at bloomers.com. Bloomer's Home and Garden Center, you got to see this place.
Welcome back to Bloomers in the Garden. So Kurt is a listener on 860 WWDB in Philadelphia, and he sent us the following email. My wife and I listen via 860, and I'm in the Delaware Valley. Great shows. Thank you very much. I have a photo of our and my mother's rhododendron. However, I was unable to attach the photo, but he did actually get it sent over. What can I do to prevent further damage? So in his picture that we're going to put up on YouTube, and we'll show you, there are brown branches that are underneath the canopy, and it is brown leaves from last year. And in the previous segment, when I talked about going into winter months with it being dry, and that we had a pretty severe winter, it was, and you know, it wasn't so much that it was so cold all the time. It was the fact that it went from being warm or temperate, all of a sudden it went down to the teens or the single digits real quick. And that problem is what made the dying leaves under the plant. They kind of basically, it dried out, and that those plants are shaded, and I can see what's going on. If you also look at the picture, Kurt, you've got some weeds underneath that rhododendron, which is competing with the moisture in the soil. So it's sucking that moisture out of the soil, so it can't stay around the root of the rhododendron. So that's also contributing to drying out. Now, one thing is that you can prune all of that out. And Aaron, kudos to you, because you answered his questions. You were right on. You were right on. You know, and Aaron did both things. Cold damage, right? He hit it. Aaron also said that the branches need to be pruned out. Also needs to get done. And that he can prune them back to the point where wherever you're pruning, and you're pruning what appears to be dead, you want to prune it back and look at where the bark and the wood meet, and you want to see if there's any green in that circle. And that's where there's life. So if you prune it and it's all dead and crispy and you just keep going back, and generally you're going to want to prune those bottom branches. And again, they are all brown, and that there are beautiful blooms up on top, and the top was green. All of that just needs to get cleaned out. Now, again, it's a healthy looking rhododendron, but it's being put under stress because it's competing with the weeds for the moisture in the soil. It's also had some issues with the winter cold, right? And that the other thing is that his leaves, you can see, are a little chloride. He needs to feed it. And hollytone, which we mentioned in the previous segment, again, Espoma hollytone, you're going to use it in the early spring, and that would be March. And then you're going to use it again in the fall, September, October. It's organic. It releases slow. During the active growing season, so that means right now, you're going to use the Jack's Acid Special, where that's the one that is you mix with water. And that's going to give the most results because it's immediately available to the plant. Espoma hollytone is organic, and it releases really, really slow. So it's something that is prolonged. And think of it this way. Espoma hollytone is like your 3 square meals a day. You eat them every day, and it breaks down into the cellular level, where if you use a multivitamin like the Acid Special, that's going to be available right away, and that's going to work right away. So it's different types of, I guess, fertilizer technology. Acid Special, water soluble, no matter what type of water soluble you're using, whether it's for your vegetable garden or whether it's for the Acid Special for your evergreens, that's going to be available to your plants right away. But it doesn't last very long. The Espoma hollytone will break down slow, and it will last a long time. So you're going to use both in conjunction with one another, but where the water solubles don't last long, so you need to repeat it every 2-3 weeks. If you do that, your plant will really look great. And also, you got to get those weeds out. Pull those weeds out. You got to pull them out by the root. If you don't pull them out by the root, they're going to just grow back. And then you're going to go and you're going to put some mulch over top. Now, depending on how much soil comes out with those weeds, you may have to backfill over top to make it level. And you're going to want to use a good compost, similar to like we talked about. Bumper crop is a great one because it will add like a mulching type of soil that's broken down and will hold moisture, and where a regular mulch is going to go and it'll take and it'll prevent the sun from drying out the soil underneath. So you're getting two different things. So again, you're going to put a compost over top of that, and bumper crop is what we recommend. We'll keep the moisture around the root system, and then when you put the mulch over top, where if you're using a shredded mulch, that it will go and protect that from drying out from the sun and from the basic elements. But again, water is essential. Moist but not wet. It's hard to tell. It looks like the rhododendron's in full sun, but he needs to go and try to take care of it when we go in periods of drought. And that seems like every summer that we go into drought. So easy, cut back the dead parts that are underneath the plant. And again, they're dead for a couple of reasons. One, because of the drought going into winter. 2, it's because the top of it is growing and it's basically hiding and shading the plant's roots. The plant leaves from underneath. So that's also contributing to it. Cut it back, clean it up, make it look nice, feed it, water it, put mulch over top of it, get rid of the weeds. I hope that helped. Kurt, thank you for listening. We do appreciate it. We'll be back in the garden right after this. Hi, this is Len Schroeder from Bloomers in the Garden. Do you have a landscape, garden, or plant question? If so, call or text us using the Bloomers in the Garden hotline. Dial 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. Don't be shy. We want to hear from you. Call or text us and let us know what problems you're facing. Let us know how we're doing. Call or text 609-685-1880. If we use your comment on the air, we'll send you a free Bloomers t-shirt. Call or text us at 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. And we'll see you in the garden. We are proud to announce that Bloomers in the Garden has partnered with Renewal by Andersen of Greater Philadelphia, Delaware, South Jersey, and Southern Maryland. Renewal by Andersen is the top window and door company in the United States, specializing in replacement windows and doors. You might be thinking right now, what the heck do windows have to do with gardening? Well, Renewal by Andersen makes this beautiful garden bay window that's energy efficient and made from recycled materials. It's perfect for growing the finest indoor plants possible. When you are looking out your windows filled with plants in your beautiful garden, you don't want to see old windows that are cloudy, warped, or even rotting. That's why people in the horticulture community love Renewal by Andersen. Not only do we want our gardens to be beautiful, but their homes as well. Renewal by Andersen participates in horticultural events such as flower shows, earth days, and eco fairs. To get more information and set up a free home consultation, please visit www.philadelphiawindow.com and be sure to tell them Bloomers in the Garden sent you.
Is she gone?
Nope, she's still standing there.
What is she doing?
I think she's watching the grass grow.
That's our job.
I know, right? She's watching the grass grow, the flowers grow. Ooh, look, the trees are growing.
Can't say as I blame her. Remember where she bought all this stuff?
Duh, bought us there too.
Bloomers Home and Garden Center. Find us online at bloomers.com.
Welcome back to Bloomers in the Garden. So it's that time. That time we have a lot of hummingbirds that are coming across I guess they've been here since April, so it's not that they're new, and it's time to get your hummingbird feeders out. And one of the biggest pain in the necks for me is having to make sure that I'm replacing my hummingbird food, because it begins to foul after 2 or 3 days, and it basically turns into like alcohol mostly. And so if you're using you can make your own. You can make your own with regular sugar and things like that. But one of the best things that I found for me, because I don't have a lot of time, is Nectar Defender. Nectar Defender, it's in different hummingbird mixes, so you get it's the same way where you mix it with water. In that, people say, "Oh, don't use red." It's like, well, the red now that they have as far as hummingbird food nectar is that made mostly out of hibiscus flowers, so it is natural. So don't get all freaked out because you're using red. I like red just simply because at a glance, I can see how much nectar is left in my feeder, and then I'll know, all right, I need to get it changed tonight, tomorrow, what have you. But again, it has to have Nectar Defender in it. It also can be purchased as an additive to your own nectar that you're making, whether you're making it out of sugar or you're making it out of one of the popular brands of nectar. Now, hummingbirds are pretty amazing. That they get here after flying across the Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico. Now you know where I'm talking about. That they'll fly here and get here sometime in April. And in this area, we get the ruby-throated hummingbirds, and that they weigh less than a nickel. Okay, so if you, those of you out there that don't know what change is, a nickel is bigger than a dime, smaller than a quarter. But that's what they weigh. The males have that iridescent ruby throat, but the females don't. So they're still green and iridescent, but they don't have the red throat. And do they sing? No. They make kind of like weird noises. They click. And that they sometimes there's like a little sharp chattering, but my hummingbirds, that they'll click. And especially like when they're getting in a territorial thing, because they can be, man, there's some fights that happen where one will zoom into the other one and zoom in to try to chase it off. And that hummingbird is beating its wings 50 to 70 times, not per minute, per second. Per second. And that's pretty amazing. So it sounds like a wasp or a bee. It's a bird. It's not an insect. And that's what you'll hear first a lot of times. So you'll hear that thing. You'll think it's a bee, but it's actually a hummingbird. Now, again, they don't really prefer a habitat, but they do have a territory where they know. So if your feeders are full and you're keeping them clean and you're using Nectar Defender, that you will end up having those hummingbirds come back. It's like they go on a route. They're like, the paper boy, where they'll come out and they'll, or paper person, I guess is appropriate, that they'll go feeder to feeder to feeder to flowers. And in the studio, we have Coffea, which is a highly attractant annual flower for hummingbirds, sometimes called cigar plant. But it has these orange little deep-throated flowers that flower all summer long, and it's a great hummingbird protector. So what about, so the birds and the bees part, where now they will have, let's see, so they will breed, and that they have, after mating, a female will lay like 2 to 3 eggs. They're tiny. Incubate them for only like 12 to 14 days. So up to 2 weeks until they hatch. And then she'll continue to care for them for another 18 to 21 days. So you're talking about another probably 3 weeks. And keeping them warm, and that she'll go and feed them nectar. And that there was one, I was talking to somebody that was a hummingbird person, and they were talking about how it's like ant moats. It's like, well, you want to have an ant moat so that they don't get ants in your nectar and things like that. And they were making the point, it was like, well, the hummingbirds eat insects too. So aren't they going to eat the ants? Probably. But I don't think I want to have ants crawling and feeding and massing over my feeder. A couple of ants, no problem. But the problem is once the ants know that there's nectar available and there's basically sugar water that they can use for the rest of the hive, that guess what? You're gonna have a mess on your hands. So yes, they will eat insects, but I can't rely on that because of just a problem that ants can cause at my own home. Let's see. They have to eat often. Hummingbirds have to go from plants to they need, like some people say, it's like, well, do we really need to feed the birds? And the answer to me is always yes, but hummingbirds even more so because they need so much to keep up their metabolism. So having our feeders are a huge benefit to our hummingbirds. Especially like now, like there's not as many plants and that are available. And this week we had some colder weather come in, and I'm cold. I mean, it was like 80. Now it's like in the 60s, but they can go and put themselves in a state and it's torpor, where it's a state where they they slower their respiration. It's an amazing thing. I mean, hummingbirds are probably the coolest thing. I've had one where it somehow got into my screened-in porch, and I had to catch it and bring it outside, and I did, gently. And for the brief moment it perched on my finger before it flew away, it was like an amazing thing, because here you have this super fast darting bird, and that where it just was amazing, and where some people will put enough feeders out and will keep them. And look, you have to be real clear that if you're going to put feeders out, you need to keep them clean and you need to make sure that you're changing the nectar. Even if you're using Nectar Defender, it still needs to be changed on time, or you're going to, basically you're going to chase your hummingbirds away because they're going to go to it and it's going to be fouled or spoiled, and they're not going to want to go to you. So what kind of plants do you want to put in? Quick list. Milkweed, benefits, both hummingbirds and butterflies. Clematis, great open flower. Daylilies, one of the best. Cardinal flower, because they love that red. And it's interesting where some of the articles that we've done, we talk about how if you put just the color red in your yard, that hummingbirds will zip down to take a look of what it is, where they did some studies where they just took a bright red ball and the hummingbirds will zoom down just to check it out, to see what it is. Some other flowers, again, that work: Liatris, lupin, morning glories, bee balm. Bee balm's big. Let's see. Buddleia, trumpet vine. I was in, Aaron, by your house. They're grown wild.
Can I interject
Yeah.
real quick? And trumpet vines were driving me crazy when I first moved to my house.
Right.
They're I guess the previous owner had a hedge filled with trumpet vine, and it was dropping berries and all types of stuff on the ground, or whatever was coming out of the middle of the bells. But they would turn bright red, and then they would kind of go like a dark, kind of like a brownish color towards the end of their bloom. And I mean, I had all types of insects, all types of stuff attracted to that hedge. It had to go.
I mean, because trumpet vine climb.
Yeah, and it was entangled in with the wisteria.
Oh,
so
you got double.
Yeah, I had vines everywhere.
What's the park by your house?
The state park,
Yeah.
or that would be Wharton.
Okay,
Wharton,
so Wharton State Park,
or Atzian, either one. They're both
went there, and that they have wild trumpet vine growing, and that you'll hear the hum of the hummingbirds massed in the trumpet vine when they're in flower. So it's a great plant.
But to your point, it definitely does attract hummingbirds for sure.
And it can be a weed left unchecked.
Oh yeah.
Again, like the milkweed. I honestly am not a big fan of milkweed. I think it's overrated. It's one of those things that's supposed to be a perennial, but it generally doesn't stay in the same place. It ends up where you have it, and then all of a sudden it comes up somewhere, that it's not supposed to be. But again, make sure you're filling your feeders often and emptying them often. And then when you clean it, you have to make sure that it's not you just throw it in the dishwasher. You've got to clean out the ports and make sure that there's not any mold that's growing in there. You soak it in some mild bleach, like say a half a cup of bleach to a gallon of water, and you want to make sure it's rinsed off really well. Because again, they're really sensitive. Think about this bird that weighs, about the weight of a nickel, that a little bit of residue, whether it's spoiled nectar or whether it's bleach or whether it's something else, that they can really get harmed. So you've got to make sure that you're changing your nectar, because again, it ferments. That, like, if you're using sugar, it ferments in hot weather, and it's toxic to the hummingbird. So you got to clean that feeder. If you're not using Nectar Defender, you've got to clean it every 2 to 3 days. The higher the temperature, the more often you need to clean and swap out your nectar. So just make sure you're doing that, because that's the most important way to keep hummingbirds coming. If you're not, you're not going to have as many hummingbirds as you think. So again, feed your hummingbirds, keep it clean, use Nectar Defender, and you'll have hummingbirds. And then again, if I see another plant where the cigar plant is a major attractant. There's different types of salvia that are a huge attractant. Go to your local garden center. They have that information that you want of what plants attract hummingbirds. And again, just make sure you're changing your nectar, changing it out, and keeping those feeders clean. We'll be back in the garden right after this. Hi, this is Len Schroeder from Bloomers in the Garden. Do you have a landscape, garden, or plant question? If so, call or text us using the Bloomers in the Garden hotline. Dial 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. Don't be shy. We want to hear from you. Call or text us and let us know what problems you're facing. Let us know how we're doing. Call or text 609-685-1880. If we use your comment on the air, we'll send you a free Bloomers t-shirt. Call or text us at 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. And we'll see you in the garden.
Fertilome's Triple Action contains 70% neem oil and 0.25% pyrethrins as a concentrate and ready to spray. It is an insecticide, fungicide, and miticide labeled to use on vegetables, fruits, nuts, herbs, spices, and ornamentals. This organic OMRI-listed product controls a wide variety of insect pests and diseases, including aphids, scale, spider mites, whiteflies, rust, leaf spot, and powdery mildew. This insecticide is an all-in-one bottle that will cure just about any problem you may run into throughout the year. Fertilome's Triple Action has been helping gardeners across the country for years. Best to apply in late evening and early morning hours. Mix 1 ounce, which is equivalent to 2 tablespoons in a gallon of water. The best part is Triple Action may be used up to the day of harvest. So the next time you are visiting your favorite garden center, ask for Fertilome's Triple Action and expect to have the best-looking plants in the neighborhood.
If you're looking for a specific potting soil for your house plants rather than just a generic professional potting soil that sometimes, let's just say, it can be a little soggy, the Cape Netic Blend Organic and Natural Indoor Houseplant Mix from Coast of Maine is what you're looking for. It's specially formulated for indoor houseplants and flowers using a coarse coconut core, that's important, perlite, and aged bark to optimize drainage and aeration for robust root development. The coconut core is what true gardeners and professionals are looking to replace some of the peat moss that are in most potting soil blends. It adds a little more air around the root system without having it dry out. The peat sometimes gets a little wet. Do you have any fungus gnats flying around? That happens too. So if you've got the coconut core in your mix, it's something that's going to be better certainly for indoor houseplants. So whether you're growing peace lilies, spider plants, philodendrons, monsteras, or other popular or exotic houseplants, this unique compost-free blend provides the optimum structure and benefits for nurturing strong, beautiful indoor plants. And again, that's the Cape Netic Blend Indoor Houseplant Mix by Coast of Maine. Look for it at your local garden center. Back to Bloomers in the Garden. So what's going on? It's like Tinkerbell came and planted mushrooms all throughout our lawns. You know, a lot of it has to do with how much moisture that we've gotten. And what is happening is that there's decaying organic matter. Most of the time it's thatch, and that it's breaking down, and that those mushrooms are growing off of that. And that they'll disappear as soon as the soil dries out. But there is something you should be concerned about. There's something called fairy ring disease, and it's a circle of yellow, basically, and it's big. It's not like it's a little tiny circle. It's going to be a large circle that has mushrooms growing in the center of it, and you need to apply a disease control. And I used a granular disease control that is a systemic. You can use something that works quicker. F-Stop by VPG is a really good disease control and it has a really broad label, which that means you can use it for a lot of different things. And could be used. I mean, it's coming to that time where we're into that wet, and soon it's going to eventually get warm, and that that disease control should be applied to your entire lawn, because there'll be brown patch, there'll be black spot, there'll be all different types of diseases that can get into your lawn, and it will also work on fairy ring. So if you see mushrooms, and they're all scattered throughout your lawn, that you don't see patches of brown or anything like that, don't worry. They'll go away on their own when things dry out a little bit. And that also, when you cut the grass, it's not going to be that big of an issue. Mushrooms are not a problem. But if you have a section to where it's a large circle with mushrooms in the middle, and those circles are like a yellowish color, where it looks like almost like a crop circle of mushrooms in yellow, that's when you need to put down a disease control. And also, as a preventative, putting down a disease control at this time of the year is a good idea, because it, again, using a systemic disease control for your lawn, that will prevent other issues that we get with lawn disease. So if you've got mushrooms, it may be something to worry about, or it might not. It's all about if you've got that yellow in the center. But most of the time, mushrooms in this time of the year, in this springtime, will happen when we get a lot of moisture, thatch begins to rot, and then all of a sudden, you've got mushrooms growing anywhere. So again, not a big deal, not much to worry about, but just make sure that you do disease control, again, if it has that large circle with yellow grass. We'll be back in the garden right after this. Hi, this is Len Schroeder from Bloomers in the Garden. Do you have a landscape, garden, or plant question? If so, call or text us using the Bloomers in the Garden hotline. Dial 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. Don't be shy. We want to hear from you. Call or text us and let us know what problems you're facing. Let us know how we're doing. Call or text 609-685-1880. If we use your comment on the air, we'll send you a free Bloomers t-shirt. Call or text us at 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. And we'll see you in the garden. Wanting to up your game in the vegetable garden? With 90 years of organic gardening experience, the Espoma Company has you covered. Espoma Organic Garden Tone is not your average garden variety fertilizer. Garden Tone is especially blended for organic vegetable gardens. Its all-natural formula contains Biotone, a blend of organic ingredients that supplies essential nutrients for strong, healthy plants and mouth-watering vegetables. Its slow-release formula provides continuous feeding. The Biotone contained in Garden Tone is a combination of organic ingredients and beneficial microbes to help roots grow deeper and faster for bigger, more bountiful harvests. Garden Tone is simple to use and safe for people, pets, and the planet. No harmful chemicals or synthetic fertilizers are ever added. You can find Garden Tone at fine garden centers. Visit espoma.com to find a retailer near you. Garden Tone from Espoma. A natural in the garden since 1929. Your next houseplant is waiting for you in Bloomers Home and Garden Center's greenhouse. Bloomers recognizes that houseplant choices are as important to your interior decorating as the fabric on your couch. The right plant, paired with the perfect container, can bring a dynamic change to your home. A houseplant brings life to your world and connects your home's interior to the greater outdoors. Even a small succulent placed on your coffee table has a way of connecting your living room to the Amazon rainforest. How about an air plant in your kitchen? Looking for an indoor flowering plant to add color to your plant palette? Bloomers has a large revolving assortment of flowering beauties. From aglaonemas to ZZ plants, Bloomers Greenhouse is stocked with your next favorite indoor plant. Bloomers carries a large selection of pottery and containers to match your home's decor and make any of your plants more beautiful. Bloomers experts can help you care for your plants and have the fertilizer, insecticides, leaf shine, and specialty soils you need to grow healthy and happy indoor plants. Visit Bloomers Home and Garden Center's greenhouse and make every room in your home a living room. Visit bloomers.com for more information. That's bloomers.com, and we'll see you in the garden. Welcome back to Bloomers in the Garden. Mr. Williams called the Bloomers in the Garden hotline with a question about his rhododendron. Here, listen to his call.
This is Joseph Williams calling. I have a rhododendron tree that has broken off, look like maybe it was an insect had broken at the bottom of the tree. This year, that happened last year. This year, the rhododendron did bloom, and it seemed like the flowers only going to last about 3 weeks. I don't know if that's the length of the time. Could you please tell me if there's anything I can do?
There is. First of all, everything seems to be okay. Where the broken branch that you had, that could be just something either fell on it or it's not that big a deal. So don't fear the shears. Get under there and cut that back, and you want to cut it back to where it meets the main plant. It's not that big of an issue. As far as flowering time, you're about 6 weeks from the time the buds crack their first color to the time where the last petal falls. And we have a rhododendron here in the studio, and we're going to show a demonstration on how it should be cleaned. Now, if you see and you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe and please give us a review that we have new growth that started right here, and it's a lighter green color, and that there's a spidery type of, I guess it's left over where that's where the deadheading takes place. And why do you deadhead a rhododendron? Well, you do that because you'll have more blooms next year if you deadhead those flowers. And it's really pretty easy to do. It almost has it's a spot where you just basically tilt it over to where it cuts off, and you can deadhead that real easily and take off those flowers. Now what's going to happen is everywhere that you do that it's going to end up being a blossom bud rather than a foliage bud. Now, you can see on our plant here in the studio that the lighter green, that those are all going to be leaves for now, but you don't want to have all leaves. So that's why you go ahead and you clean that up and you deadhead it like I'm doing here. You just grab that bud and you tilt it over to the right or to the left, and that it will go and snap right at the right place, and you get all those flowers off. Get all those flowers off. Now, again, that will also help the plant to be more compact. You don't want a, spindly looking rhododendron. Now, those both, Kurt and Joe, had the issue where the branches were dead on the bottom. You're going to clean that up and trim that back. It's going to be fine. It's something that the rhododendrons will shade themselves, and then because they're not getting as much sun, that they go and that those leaves will die back. And it's not that there's anything really wrong. It's just the fact that they're not producing enough food. So the plant says, hey, why do we need this? This is a drain on our system. So what we're going to do is we're just going to let them die off and put all of our energy into growing on the top. And that's basically what's happening for both Kurt and Mr. Williams. So again, don't be worried about using your shears. Cut it back to where the main trunk is. It's not going to hurt it. And again, if you have a broken branch, like Mr. Williams said that he had a branch last year that was towards the bottom that he thought was broken, there are times where we're handling rhododendrons and such, and then all of a sudden a little section of it seems like it's dying. It turns out, guess what? It's broken. It's broken. And that just needs to be pruned off. So don't fear the shears. But I do want you to do your deadheading by hand. Don't try to get a snipper in there or anything else. It's so easy to do on your own that it's better to do it by hand than to do it with shears. If you've got questions about rhododendrons or any of your landscape plants, call that hotline. That's 609-685-1880. We'll be right back right after this. Hi, this is Len Schroeder from Bloomers in the Garden. Do you have a landscape, garden, or plant question? If so, call or text us using the Bloomers in the Garden hotline. Dial 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. Don't be shy. We want to hear from you. Call or text us and let us know what problems you're facing. Let us know how we're doing. Call or text 609-685-1880. If we use your comment on the air, we'll send you a free Bloomers t-shirt. Call or text us at 609-685-1880. That's 609-685-1880. And we'll see you in the garden. Coast of Maine's Organic Castine Blend Organic Raised Bed Mix is the best soil for raised bed gardens, planter boxes, and container gardens. It grows amazing vegetables. It is made with a mixture of manure compost, worm castings, lobster and kelp meal, mycorrhiza, green sand, and biochar. It's ready to use straight out of the bag with no need for additional components or tilling. If you love growing fresh and hearty vegetables, herbs, and flowers, Coast of Maine's Castine Blend Organic Raised Bed Mix is the perfect choice for you. At Coast of Maine, we believe in growing organically and buying locally. You're listening to Bloomers in the Garden Radio. Listen anytime through your favorite podcast provider or see and hear us by subscribing to Bloomers YouTube channel. Bloomers in the Garden Radio is heard in Philadelphia and throughout the whole Delaware Valley every Saturday. First, wake up with us at 6 a.m. on WNWR The Word at 95.3 FM and 1540 AM. Tune in at 8 a.m. to Bloomers in the Garden Radio on Talk 860 WWDB. A rebroadcast of Bloomers in the Garden Radio is played each Saturday evening at 5 p.m. on The Word, 95.3 FM and 1540 AM. On Sunday at 8 a.m., we can be heard throughout the New York tri-state area on Classic Oldies, 1250 AM WMTR. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the garden. Welcome back to Bloomers in the Garden. So, rhododendron maintenance is what it's all about today. We touched on a little bit about mushrooms and certainly hummingbirds, but just feed your rhododendrons and your azaleas Espoma Hollytone and Jack's Classic Acid Special. It will make those plants do great. If you have any insects, you can spray it with a systemic. That's what you want to use. A contact, you'll be out there every 2 weeks. A systemic, you won't be. If you've got questions, you know what to do. Call that hotline at 609-685-1880. We'll be right here at the same time next week. We'll see you in the garden.